Hello, this is our Math 1314 CoREC exam 2 review, and so let's get started. On number 1, now numbers 1 through 8 come from section 1.2. So I know that I'm going to be just solving linear equations or rational equations. On the first one, we're going to distribute this 5 into that first parentheses. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 3 is 15, and it's equal to 45. Next, to get the x's all by themselves on one side, I'm going to move the 15 over to the other side. It becomes a negative 15. Now, cleaning it up, this is 10x, my equal sign, and combine the 45 and the negative 15, which would be 30. To get the x solved for now, all I have to do is divide off the 10. And on the left-hand side, the 10's cancel, and we get x equals 30 divided by 10, which is 3. For number 2, I'm going to have to multiply through by a least common denominator. So I start by looking at the largest denominator, 5. Since 4 doesn't divide evenly into the 5, I'm going to go ahead and multiply the 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Well, 4 doesn't divide into 10 either, so try it again. 5 times 3, it's going to be a multiple of the 5. 5 times 3 is 15. 4 still doesn't divide into 15. 5 times 4, 20. 4 divides into 20, 2 divides into 20, and 5 divides into 20. So 20 over 1 is our least common denominator. I'm going to multiply it onto every single term. If you need to, put that extra step in. Now, when you multiply the first piece by the least common denominator, 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 5 times 3 is 15. When you multiply the second term by the least common denominator, the 20 divided by the 5 is 4. And 4 times 1x is 4x. When I multiply the third term by the least common denominator, 20 divided by 2 is 10. And 10 times 1 is 10. When I multiply the least common denominator onto the third term, 20 divided by 5 is 4. And 4 times 4x is 16x. Here's where the equal sign is, so I'm going to clean up the left-hand side before I move anything else over. There's only one x term, but 15 and negative 10 can be combined to make a plus 5. On this problem, because almost all the x's are already on the right, I'm going to go ahead and choose to move my 4x to the right to get the x's isolated. When he moves over the equal sign, he does turn into a negative 4x. So now I've got 5 equals 12x. To solve for x here, I'm going to divide both sides by 12. On the right, the 12's cancel and I get x. And on the right-hand side, 5 over 12 doesn't reduce any further, so that's it. Let's keep going. On number 3, first thing I notice that I have to do is distribute that negative 5 into the parentheses. So that will be 3x plus 2. The negative 5 times x is a negative 5x. The negative 5 times 1 is a negative 5. The other side doesn't need any cleaning. But now I notice since this is where my equal sign is, I'm going to start by combining any like terms. There are 2 x terms and 2 constants on the left that I can combine. 3x's and negative 5x is going to be a negative 2x, and 2 and negative 5 combine to make negative 3. Now I'm going to isolate or move all of my x's to the left, all my constants to the right. That negative 3 crosses over the equal sign and becomes a positive 3. That 6x crosses over the equal sign to the left-hand side and becomes a negative 6x. So now we have negative 8x's equals 7. To finish it off, to isolate the x, and we divide both sides by a negative 8. On the left, the x is going to be left all by itself, and on the right, my answer will be negative 7/8. For number 4, I'm going to start off by writing the 2x over 1, and then look for the least common denominator again. I always start with the largest number. Do 1, 3, and 3 all divide evenly into 6? Yes. So I know that 6 over 1 is the least common denominator that I'm going to multiply through by. When I multiply the first piece by the least common denominator, these 6's cancel and that 5x comes straight down. When I multiply the second term by the least common denominator, 6 divided by 1 is still 6, times a negative 2x is a negative 12x. When I multiply the third term by the least common denominator, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. When I multiply the fourth term by the least common denominator, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Here's where my equal sign is, so that means that there's a little bit of cleanup I can do on the left. There are two x terms which combine to make negative 7x, and one constant which I can move over to the right side as a negative 2. When I combine the 4 and the negative 2, I get 2. Now I can finish it off by dividing both sides by negative 7, and so x will be equal to negative 2/7. Let's continue. And I believe that should have a 0.1 on your copy. If not, let's make it a 0.1x so that you don't think it's a 5.1. All right, on this one, even though they're decimals, we're going to do it exactly the same way. I'm going to start by getting all of my x's on the left-hand side and all my constants on the right. Now I'm going to use my calculator because when there are decimals involved, it's always a good idea to have a calculator handy. We have 0.1 minus 2.03. So I get negative 1.93 x's. On the other side, a negative 2.96 minus 3.1 will get us negative 6.06. To solve for x, all we do is divide both sides by a negative 1.93. On the left-hand side, the x will be left by itself, and on the other side, after dividing by negative 1.93, I'm going to get 3.139896, blah, blah, blah. If you want to be safe, always keep 3 decimal places. Now, I would like for you to be able to round, so this would actually be 1.40, but if you gave me just 3 decimals, I'm going to be okay with that too. And one more real quick, I'm going to multiply again by the least common denominator to get the linear form. I like it better, so let's multiply him by the least common denominator. In order to find the least common denominator, I'm going to look at the first piece and say, I've got to be able to cancel out an x plus 4. Okay, so he'll be taken care of now. We look at the second term. There's nothing to cancel, so he's going to be okay. When I look at the third term, I've got to be able to cancel out an x plus 4. I've already got that available, so I'm done. That is the least common denominator. When I multiply it onto the first term, the x plus 4 is canceled, so the 5x comes straight down. On the other side, when I multiply, on the second term, when I multiply him by the least common denominator, nothing cancels. So I'm going to have to take the 3 and the x plus 4 and bring them down. When I multiply the third term by the least common denominator, the x plus 4 is canceled. So the negative 20 is going to come down. Now it's just a nice little linear equation to solve. I'm going to start by distributing the 3 through the parentheses. 3 times x, 3 times 4 is 12 minus 20. Here's my equal sign, but I notice that on the right I do have 2 constants that could be combined, so I'm going to do that first. The 5x and the 3x are fine, but 12 and negative 20 clean up to be a negative 8. Now I'll move the 3x's back over to the left. That's 2x equals negative 8. After dividing both sides by 2, we will end up with an x of negative 4 as our answer. I don't need you to verify that it's a solution, but you will go ahead and find the negative 4. See you in the next video.